Hey guys, I want to make a quick video here. One of the things that I didn't like about the mounting of the Raptor tent had to do with the brackets and the way they fit on the stock Land Cruiser crossbars. Those crossbars are those little thin curved bars, and they're really too thin for the brackets that are included. So you'll notice I had to end up using some rubber spacers that I made out of some old inner tubes. The reason I use that is because it's real rubber. It's heavy duty rubber. I just had to cut them in quarters and fold them up to get the thickness I wanted, but I didn't really like it. It was a temporary thing just so I could get out. So I've pulled the tent off and I'm reorienting the mount bars so that I can run them side to side and use the much heavier main bar as the primary mount point. So let me show you that. Okay, so you can see I've got the tent suspended over the car. I've got the mount bar removed. They're just mounted up in here. There's a hole about the size of a quarter, and if you disconnect these straps here, which is what holds the entire tent to the frame, then you can lift the tent up and get underneath. So once you unscrew those, they mount here to these slide-in T-nuts. The challenge is that if you'll notice, there's only actually 2 holes now instead of when you run them long ways, there's 3 that they mount to, but I don't think that that's going to be an issue. They should be plenty heavy to hold the tent down. But the point being that now, as you can see here, I've got one side, the nut started, and I'm starting to start the nut on this side, and you'll see now I don't have the issue with the bracket being far too long. So the main thing I did was, measure from one side to the other. In my case, it's 45 inches. So that's 22.5 in the middle. I measured the entire length of the bar, measured the middle, I put a mark at the middle of the bar, and then from the middle out, 22.5 inches, I put a mark here, so I knew where the middle of this rubber needed to be. And that would be about the middle of the bracket. It'll move a little bit because, as you can see, these are, on my car anyway, they're not square. And I imagine most cars are going to be like this. So there's a little bit of wiggle room that you're going to need there. And I'll need to measure at the rear because I suspect the rear may be a little wider, although that's probably not the case since yeah, these bars slide back and forth. So that measurement should be the same front and rear now that I think about it. All right, let me go ahead and get these mounted and show you some of the primary reasons that I'm doing this. Okay, so I've got the crossbars lined up now. I've tightened up. I've sent the Allen bolt down through this crossbar, tighten this up, this one corner is now tight. Everything else is a little loose, but let me show you the things I did. When I had it up on here, the first thing I did was I put a little mark in line with where the crossbar met the mount so that I knew where to put this back, because I already had it lined up front to rear so that I knew that I had enough room for the hatch to come up. So I put that there. So there's a couple reasons I'm doing it. I'm changing the way this is mounting. The first reason is that while the crossbars that are there are strong enough, there is a little bit of play, which may not be a bad thing. A little bit of flex might be a good thing. But primarily the problem is that the included brackets here don't fit. You see how well they fit now. But there is a second benefit to this. If you all know anything about 80/20 aluminum, this is the 80/20 aluminum extraction. It's just a knockoff. But all this extruded aluminum has these mount channels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize these that are sticking out, and I'm either going to buy a gusset that goes in here and then mount a flat probably a 3-inch high extruded aluminum one with 3 channels, or I may just do a single. Probably only need a single. But what I want to do is utilize these to mount additional things, maybe some exterior lights. But being that this is the side that I enter, what I want to do is on this side I want to mount that bar across, and I want to mount the awning over here. So I use this side of the truck for an awning, and I'll be able to use these bars to mount that. So that's the second reason that I wanted to do this. I'm hoping that with it being mounted this way as well, while there was never a problem, when you go down the interstate, if it's really windy, you can, and when I would open the sunroof and look up, you could see this thing was moving just a bit. Sometimes that's good because you don't want it too tight, but I think with it being much more rigidly mounted, that would be better. Okay, now that I've got the tent remounted, I wanted to talk a couple of things. So I've driven it now about 20 miles, and I can tell a difference already in how the truck rides. The first thing I notice is that the tent is it's more stable. It was solidly mounted to start with, but as I had mentioned before, you'd notice that it would the front of it would bounce just a little bit, especially in a really tough wind, or if you're going down the road it's bumpy, you'd see it move a bit. Now when I'm going down the road, it is absolutely solid, doesn't move at all. The other thing I've noticed is that there's less wind noise. I have no idea why that is, unless there's a little bit more room up in front. I think it may be a half an inch higher mounted this way than it was mounted on the crossbars. So this has worked out pretty well. And now all the mounting points are much more rigid. I don't have as much flex in there, probably because I don't have an inch of rubber at each of the corners as well. But yeah, it was a pain to get the mount bars removed. You have to basically remove all the straps all the way around so you can get under the tent. And the tent has actually when they're mounted long ways, there's 3 Allen head bolts, 6mm Allen head bolts that screw into these little T-nuts that slide up and down the channel. You got to remove those. When you mount them side to side, you can only use 2 of those holes, so you have an extra T-nut in there. But as I mentioned, it's actually more rigid this way. I suspect it's just because I don't have so much cushion in there. And it's a little bit less noisy, which surprised me. I didn't expect that part. So I'll keep you updated as to how the tent does and how it does mounted this way. And hopefully this helps some of y'all. Thanks.